what's up, you guys?
Hey, what's up, you guys?
Hey, what's up, you guys? Hey, what's up, you guys? Hey, what's up, you guys? Marty Schwartz here from Marty Music. It's a website and YouTube channel that teaches guitar. I've been teaching guitar by making lesson videos for the last 16 years. My first guitar memories are being a little toddler and an old acoustic Martin guitar that is now in my possession, but it was my dad's. So, and my dad's still around and everything, but he was just kind of a 4 or 5 open chord strummy beginner and he never evolved from that. But there was always a guitar, you know, from the beginning of my life in the house. I was into classic rock like the Allman Brothers and Sly and the Family Stone and Beatles and the Rolling Stones and Led Zeppelin, Jimi Hendrix, Grateful Dead. More than that was actually going to see Santana, and Blues Traveler opened for Santana. And at the time, this was probably Blues Traveler's probably one of their very first concerts in California, and this is before the internet. And so they were in their 20s. I was a teenager, but they were in their 20s. And to see a young band playing that more, it wasn't called jam bands yet. It was just a young band doing something more in the style of the 60s and 70s with improv and all, you know, but it was young guys that I could relate to. That was like a turning point for me. Senior year of high school, I started to play. Next thing I know, I'm in a band, you know. When I went to college, I immediately attracted myself to all the musical students. My guitar teacher that really helped me so tremendously, his name's Chris Sherland, and this was in Santa Fe, New Mexico, which is a tiny little city. So he was in the best working band, nightclub band in Santa Fe. Great, I looked up to them. They were really great. And I also looked up to my teacher so much because he could make a living in music without being a rock star. You had to be versatile though. He taught at the college. He taught regular private lessons. And so I really looked at that as a template that you could do where if you still have the dream of like making it big, but you could do what he did and make a living and still enjoy guitar, music, and make a living doing it while you try and take it farther. Well, I want to try and be like Chris, and I enjoyed guitar lessons so much and paid so much attention to the stuff I learned in guitar lessons. I think I can communicate that back as a guitar teacher as well. And so then I did actually get a part-time job at the local music store. Working there is how I started to, you know, I had a business card, and that's like people would walk in and say, hey, I'm looking for guitar lessons. Do you know any good guitar teachers? And I was allowed to say, yeah, I do guitar lessons. You know, here's my card. And then eventually I had enough students where it made more sense to just become a full-on guitar teacher. And that music store would give my card out after I didn't work there anymore. So there I was, very, you know, pretty young, straight out of college, making my living in music. I do remember my very first guitar lesson where they paid me, you know, $25, and the kid's name was Dylan. It's weird to think Dylan's probably like a father now, because he was like 6 or 7 years old. It's just really weird that he's like a grown-up somewhere, because I just think of this tiny little kid. His parents named him Dylan after Bob Dylan. It's Santa Fe, New Mexico, like hippie parents, you know. And I just remember it being way harder than I thought, because he was such a little kid and never touched a guitar. But what I figured out, and I still do this today, is the just little single note melodies, you know, like ba 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 ba. Little things like that, especially with a little kid, they can still pretty much do that. So I kind of start with that, and then get them, you know, trying to play like an E minor chord, an E power chord, Come As You Are, that riff, like that would be around that early time.
So you do that.
But the number one thing I would tell any teacher, and this is something this is one of my talents, I think, is just being personable and like making that student feel comfortable, like not in a fake way, but trying to get to know them, what makes them tick, what do they like, what are their interests, make them trust you, make them feel comfortable with you. I'm always had humor in everything I've done. And a lot of times they don't practice, so what's left? It's like laughing and having fun is like one of the things when they haven't, you know, they're not progressing.
Ideal is closer to the next fret up. And then the 5 chord up a whole step, E7. I'm gonna use that C7 shape for it.
For me, teaching the basics, the fundamentals, over and over and over has really emphasized like the whole foundation of guitar for me. I know the streamline to get you playing, then you can start adding those more complex situations. For instance, to really start to learn to improvise a guitar solo, if you learn every scale that exists and start practicing every scale position, that's gonna take way longer to just play a nice melodic solo than just taking one note literally and improvising the rhythm on the one note, and then adding a second note and a third note and staying in one little spot. That's true improvisation. Learning all the scale shapes, you can do that later, but you want to actually make music right away. So those are the things I've, you know, learned teaching so much. I'd started making little video clips for my private students and then putting that video on the YouTube channel and putting their name, the student's name in the title, so they could just go onto YouTube without finding my channel. I mean, this is the olden days of YouTube, the Wild West of YouTube. But at the end of the lesson, the last 10 minutes, I'd flip up my laptop, hit the camera, and say, hey, I'm here with Andy, and we just worked on Wonderball, and the chords are here, nice and easy. And then the strum pattern, down, 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 up, and you put it all together and you start strumming it. But then I would title the video because I wasn't thinking about building an audience. I was thinking about my student not being able to say, oh, I didn't practice this week. And so I would say, well, I'm gonna put your name in the title and then I'm gonna look at the views to make sure you watched it because no one else is gonna watch it. So one day, and I remember it really well, I taught this kid, his name was Chase. I taught him the intro to Mississippi Queen. And my heart has a connection to Mississippi Queen literally because of this. And it's an awesome song, but like I connect to it with my career. So by accident, I taught Chase the intro to Mississippi Queen, and I titled the video, How to Play the Intro to Mississippi Queen for Chase on April 22nd. That was my happy accidental introduction into search engine optimization, nation. And it got a few hundred views. So yeah, no, not life altering, but something that only got 5 or 6 views to like 300. And then the next week, 5,000. And then the week after that, 10,000. And then the next feeling or thinking was, well, how does someone make a living? Like people are watching. How do you turn this into a living? And I had no idea, but that was like the next thing that I was thinking and investigating and trying to research, like by just looking at other people on the old first generation YouTube, like what are these other people doing? I learned about like internet business basically just by research. So that was kind of the next thing. It was like, okay, I'm working pretty hard. I'm almost working twice as hard now because I'm still gigging and teaching private lessons to actually make money, but there's something here with the video thing. And also, I was starting to get reached out to by people that were watching the videos that wanted guitar lessons with me. So I was like, I found, so I was finding like higher end guitar students. I was able to start asking for more money. You know, there was things that I was doing, but none of it was really that passive income thing that I didn't even know if that existed. There's all these things I didn't think ahead would happen that have happened. You know, sitting in this room with Susan Tedeschi, you know, or seeing the Allman Brothers when I was only playing guitar for a year and seeing this guy, Jack Pearson, who was only in the Allman Brothers for a minute, and then cut to, you know, 20 years later, sitting in a room with Jack Pearson, interviewing him for my channel, you know, and getting to tell him that he inspired me so much. I jammed with Scott Ian from Anthrax. I taught Jason Statham guitar, the British action hero actor, and he's yelling at his little wiener dogs, you know, and it's like this tough guy's yelling at these little cute little mini dogs. It's like out of a scene of a movie. Every 6 weeks I do a free event at the Gibson Garage called Back to Basics, where it's kind of like an open jam, but you sign up and you can come up with me and a band that I have, and you can play something that you learned from me. You can do a blues jam. You can be a beginner and I can show you something and you can feel what it feels like to play with a band. But anyway, Grace Bauer's first, you know, performance where there was an audience was at that event, and she was probably 14 or 15 and came up and played some, you know, blues with me. So to be a part of this new generation of up and coming guitar players is beyond my wildest expectations or dreams. I never set out to do that. So that's the biggest like reward today. I'm holding my Epiphone Signature ES335 right now. I mean, it's still out of my belief. That's why I didn't bring it up as the first answer, because I literally forgot again that that's what I'm holding, you know? So when Gibson approached me about making a signature guitar, I knew I wanted to do something that was a professional playing grade guitar at the more affordable price. Some people have given me a hard time because I say the nicest entry-level guitar you can get, and this guitar retails for $899. So like some people wouldn't say entry-level, but what I'm saying is Epiphone is that entry-level brand, but then I just basically made the nicest Epiphone ES335 that I could make. And then I got to basically say cherry red because of Back to the Future, because of Marty McFly uses the red one. Then I chose block inlays because of B.B. King, one of my ultimate favorite guitar players who also famously played a 335. I got my logo on the back because I wanted to make the best Epiphone 335 whether you knew who I was or not. So if you go in and find it, you're not gonna know right away that it's my signature guitar. Or if you just love the guitar and you're like, I don't even know who Marty is, so I'm not gonna wanna be advertising his logo everywhere. But then we were able to upgrade the sides, front and back, all with figured maple, which the Epiphone usually doesn't have. So the back is figured just like the front, which is a more high-end quality. And then also I put locking tuners on it. Makes it so much easier to string the guitar. And I don't know about you, but when you were a beginner, stringing like was really hard actually. Like you screw up a bunch of times to learn it. So I feel like that speeds that process up, as well as I think keeps the guitar in tune just a little better. I'm hanging out with the amazing Jim D'Addario of D'Addario Strings. We're here at the factory.
That wire, after it's coming out of there, we put it through a plasma field annealer. It anneals it in this space right here, right? Yeah, you can see the wire glowing in there.
My guitar teacher from college that kind of molded me and taught me all the fundamentals, he used D'Addario, still uses D'Addario. you know, you go by your mentors, right? So I still use the EJ16s from way back then, but now I have some coated, which that wasn't I've been playing guitar longer than coated strings. But I still use those as the same, you know, and then I would use the standard 10s, but now I've evolved into the NYXLs, which I just love, just in every way, you know, just stringing them up. They feel great, they sound great, stay in tune better, and quicker when you restring it. I mean, not enough. Plus they're already D'Addarios, which I've used my whole life. So to like basically use the same product, but they're just, you know, more advanced in technology to make those things possible. I mean, it's a no-brainer. I mean, if you come out with NYXL 2.0s, I'll start using those. As a guitar teacher, when I have a beginner play, I tell them to use very thin or light picks. It's more forgiving. As I started to play lead guitar, I learned that a medium pick was started to get a little more important to be able to like really control the dynamic of picking the note. And then as I progressed meeting like professionals, a lot of them used like the tiny little jazz picks that were super thick and heavy. And I tried those didn't work as well for me. So I used mediums for many years. So I found these black ice picks. They've got that great point. Pretty much think this is it from here on out. And then I gotta tell you, I was so impressed with how easy and affordable, for real, because I paid for some picks for a gig I did. So awesome, you could just go online and put a logo in, and it was really affordable. I thought of that as like this custom thing that would be expensive, or that a big company like D'Addario wouldn't fulfill, but it's so easy and fun and affordable to make your own picks, and they can be high quality picks too. So something that I absolutely love and I recommend it, and I'm constantly handing them out to guitar players, is the Micro Headstock Tuner. Now, if you looked at my guitar right now in this angle, you can barely tell. It blends right in, clips right on here, and no one can even see it. So anywhere I go with the guitar, I can always tune it, whether I'm plugged in or not, or whether you can hear it or not. You know, it's going off the vibrations. And then I also like that you can change the direction of the screen depending on where on the guitar you put it. So I put it right here, and you know, it's completely adjustable. So I've adjusted it so I can just look right here and always be tuning, which I don't have to tune that much because of the NYXLs, but that's another story.